and we hope these measures will accommodate everyone who wishes to participate in our open and public meetings. So with that, I'm going to move to the Pledge of Allegiance, which I'm going to ask, since I'm remote, I'm asking my Mayor Pro Tem, Steve Dennis, to lead us in the pledge.
Thank you, Mayor. Please all rise. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Mr. Dennis. Next is roll call. Would Joe please do the roll?
Councilmember Mills.
Here.
Councilmember Dennis.
Here.
Councilmember Thiede.
Here.
Councilmember Olson.
Here.
Mayor Bailey.
Here, kind of. Next item on our agenda this evening is open forum. This is the opportunity for anybody that wants to speak on something that is not on tonight's agenda is welcome to do so. Being that I'm not in the council chambers this evening, I will look to staff to tell me if there is anybody that has signed up within the council chambers.
There has not been.
There has not been. Okay, Joe. And then I'll see if there's anybody online that's watching. I do see we have some people attending online. Is there anybody that wants to speak on open forum at this point? If you want to raise your hand or send me a message. All right, I'm not seeing any at this point, so we'll go ahead and close the open forum portion of our meeting, and we'll move to number 5, which is adoption of the agenda.
Motion to adopt the agenda. Second.
All right. Motion by Councilmember Dennis. I believe that was second by Councilmember Thiede, correct?
Yes.
Thank you. Joe, please roll.
Councilmember Mills.
Aye.
Councilmember Dennis.
Aye.
Councilmember Thiede.
Aye.
Councilmember Olson.
Aye.
Mayor Bailey.
Aye. Next on our agenda, since it's been adopted, is presentations. We actually have 4 different presentations this evening. The first presentation is regarding Autism Awareness and Acceptance Month Proclamation. And I believe Councilmember Olson, you are going to share a slide and then speak to this proclamation.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. So I see the slide is up here that April is Autism Awareness and Acceptance Month, as it is every year. I wanted to thank the staff for working very closely with our partners at the state of Minnesota's Autism Society, and we've done such a good job of working with those folks that we've actually been now designated as a Autism Acceptance Community Partner with the state of Minnesota, which I'm very grateful for. This proclamation, which I will read shortly, is intended to help inform the public about what autism spectrum disorder is and ways in which folks who do live on the spectrum, as does my eldest son, Corbin, what they do in terms of coping with autism spectrum disorder, whether it's through therapy or other means with family members, friends, teachers, etc. So once again, thank you to the staff, and I would also advise all of those watching at home that the City of Cottage Grove also produced our council update this month around Autism Awareness and Acceptance Month. I was very pleased to be able to talk a bit about Autism Awareness and Acceptance Month. And in that council update, we actually focus on one of our community's residents. I don't know if folks can see me or not, but the resident that we focus on, Shaletta Brundage, has 3 children on the autism spectrum. And recently her son Daniel, who was nonverbal for many years, learned to speak and then learned to read through music therapy, which is something that many on the autism spectrum disorder find to be very helpful. And she wrote a book about it called Daniel Finds His Voice. You can find it on all of the bookshelves of your favorite bookstores. You can find it on Amazon or any local bookshelf. And there's more information about Daniel finding his voice in the video that we produced for the council update this month. And with that, I'd like to read the proclamation.
There you go.
Whereas autism or autism spectrum disorder, ASD, refers to a broad range of conditions characterized by challenges with social skills, repetitive behaviors, speech, and nonverbal communication. And whereas because autism is a spectrum disorder, each person with autism has a distinct set of strengths and challenges. The ways in which people with autism learn, think, and problem solve can range from highly skilled to severely challenged. Some people with ASD may require significant support in their daily lives, while others may need less support, and in some cases live entirely independently. And whereas the Centers for Disease Control's Autism and Developmental Disabilities Monitoring Network notes that 1 in 54 U.S. children has autism spectrum disorder. According to the Autism Society of Minnesota, the prevalence rate for autism in our state is 1 in 44, the third highest rate of 11 data collection sites throughout the country. And whereas parents, educators, therapists, and caregivers here in Cottage Grove continue to help people on the autism spectrum thrive, while simultaneously creating awareness and acceptance in our community through conversations, advocacy, and education. And whereas the Cottage Grove mother of Daniel, a 6-year-old resident in our city, has authored a book titled Daniel Finds His Voice, offering a unique way to help educate people about autism while sharing the power of music therapy with parents. And whereas during the month of April, we strive to promote autism awareness, inclusion, and self-determination. Now, therefore, the mayor and the city council of the city of Cottage Grove, County of Washington, state of Minnesota, hereby proclaim the month of April to be designated as Autism Awareness and Acceptance Month. Passed this Wednesday, the 21st day of April, 2021, Myron Bailey, Mayor.
Fantastic. Thank you, Councilmember Olson, for your focus, by the way, on the autism process and the spectrum, and for bringing this to our attention so that we can incorporate that into our proclamations for the month and focus of our city. All right, next on our presentations is the City Water Conservation Program update, and our project engineer, Joe Fox, is going to walk us through this program.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and City Council. My name is Joe Fox. I'm a project engineer. On March 17th, the City Council approved the water conservation programs, and I was asked to come here tonight and talk about the 5 water conservation programs the city has going on right now. The main reason that the city water conservation programs exist is because the city's water delivery system is designed for the peak day, which is the day that residents use the largest volume of water. It comes usually sometime in the middle of the summer. So conserving water helps keep this peak day as low as possible, which means that the city can spend less water or spend less money on water infrastructure. So the first water conservation program I'm sure you're all familiar with is the Smart Irrigation Controller program that we've been doing since 2017. These are the Ratio 3 Smart Irrigation Controllers that the city buys for about $160 and resells to our citizens for $35. They retail for around $230 to $280. These controllers are really interesting. They say they can help save a lot of money because they are connected to the internet and they can see what rain has already fallen in the area by going to certain websites, and then they go to other websites that tell them what the forecast is. So they can then change the watering schedule for the lawn based on what it has already rained and what is forecasted. So they can really help save a lot of water. These are available for single-family homes as well as for businesses. Since 2017, we have resold 756 of these, and this year we're reselling them again. We've so far resold about 30 just in the past couple weeks, and again we're selling them for $35 this year. This program of the Smart Irrigation Controllers is paid for by a grant from the South Washington Watershed District. And I'm showing here on this slide, there are a couple of pictures of just what this actually looks like. It's run by an app on your smartphone. And this graph here I think is interesting. It shows that sort of those gray bars that are continuous across the background there are what happens if you have a regular irrigation controller and you just set it and forget it, and it just waters the same amount every day, every other day, whatever it is, no matter how much rain has fallen or is going to fall. It waters the lawn as much as you set it to. Whereas those orange bars on there represents what would happen if you had a smart irrigation controller that was programmed correctly. It would only water your lawn when it was absolutely necessary. You keep your lawn nice and healthy, and it would also reduce water usage. So that's a nice graphic of what the smart irrigation controller can provide, just less water use. Going along with the irrigation controllers are irrigation audits that our contractor, Water in Motion, has been doing for us since 2019. In 2019, we offered this service to 5 HOAs, or I think we offered it to more, but we had 5 HOAs that actually took us up on it. And those 5 HOAs are composed of 681 homes, so it was quite a large group that benefited from this. Last year in 2020, we had a lot less just because COVID made it very challenging to do these audits of the irrigation systems. We had 1 HOA and 8 single-family residential homes that took us up on this offer of the irrigation audits. This year we're planning to do more. We haven't reached out yet, but we plan, as we always do, to target the highest water users based on the water bills that we see coming in. And this company, Water in Motion, they do these audits. They go to the people's homes, the HOA grounds, and they find little things like in the lower left here, there's this picture of a little mushroom. A mushroom to them is a sign that you're overwatering. It's just you're putting too much water in your lawn. They also look at whether it's a smart controller or not. In the central picture there, we see somebody looking at the irrigation controller, checking out if it's scheduled correctly to water your lawn as much as it needs and no more. And on the right there, we see a picture of a lawn that you can see, it has different colors of green on it for, I think, different colors or different amounts of water that has fallen on it. In the foreground, it's kind of a little bit brown there. Looks like that's perhaps irrigation head, the sprinkler head isn't working properly. So anyway, these are the types of things that Water in Motion goes and looks for and tries to point out and then offer corrections, like upgrading the sprinklers or programming them so that they water the whole lawn, gets the same amount of water no matter where it is. If it's in the sun, if it's in the shade, they can kind of coordinate that so that the lawn doesn't get too much water. So, as I said, there have been 6 HOAs that have gotten irrigation audits through this program. And as a follow-up to that, the city is offering reimbursements to help them do the actual upgrades to their system that will help save water. So we're offering up to 50% reimbursements for their costs, up to $7,500, to as many as 5 HOAs if they would like to take part in this. The only HOA that's so far signed up for it is the Pine Arbor Townhome. You can see an aerial of that on the right here. They have about 9.5 acres. I'm not sure exactly how much of that is grass, but they use about 1.5 million gallons of water alone on irrigation. So there's quite a bit of potential savings there if they go through and go through with this and install the upgrades and ask us for their reimbursements. The picture in the left corner here shows a picture that was taken during the audits that shows one of the, I think, common problems that we have. It shows, the sprinkler is watering both the sidewalk as well as the driveway. Clearly, if you just readjust that and put the right equipment in there, you could stop watering those hard surfaces and just focus on the grass. So that's one fairly obvious thing that these type of audits are meant to get rid of. And as I say, we're doing this again this year, so if you know of an HOA, if you live in one or want one for your residential home, please contact me and we can set that up for you. It's available again, as I say, to all residential, commercial, and HOAs in the city. So the next water conservation program we have doesn't have to do with lawn, it has to do with toilets and washing machines. And these are water conservation or water efficiency rebates. The city is offering this. We got the money from a grant from the Metropolitan Council. They are giving us money that they got from the Clean Water, Land, and Legacy Amendments. And what these rebates are for toilets, as I said, which have this WaterSense label from the EPA. The WaterSense label, the WaterSense program is for toilets that they figured out that's the lowest volume of water a good toilet could use is 1.28 gallons per flush. So any toilet that has 1.28 gallons per flush has this water sense label, and it's available at most stores. And if you purchase it and install it, you can get an $80 rebate, or up to an $80 rebate through this program. The Energy Star program that we have is for washing machines. Washing machines that use, I think it's 25% less energy and 33% less water are available. So if you install one of those, you can get up to a $200 rebate from the city. So far we've given out about 130 rebates in the last few months, totaling $23,000, and we have about $13,000 left. As I say, the Vermont Council gave us a grant to cover 75% of these rebates, and the city pays the other 25%. So far, for the toilets and the washing machines that have been installed, there's an estimated average annual savings of 360,000 gallons. So it's pretty decent savings if on an annual average basis. The last conservation program I wanted to talk about is the Mayor's Challenge. It's sponsored by this organization called Wyland Foundation. It's the Wyland National Mayor's Challenge for Water Conservation. The way it works is that residents of Cottage Grove go to mywaterpledge.com and they make a pledge about getting a smart irrigation controller or fixing leaky faucet. And these cities like Cottage Grove competes against other cities across the U.S. of similar size, and the winner of this challenge is the city that has the highest percentage of residents who sign up for this pledge. So there's no cost to residents, no cost to the city. It's just a challenge for people to make these pledges and then to follow through with them. So you can go to mywaterpledge.com and sign up for this. Residents and cities can win various prizes. The grand prize is a hybrid truck. So that's a look at our water conservation programs we have right now. I'd be happy to answer any questions if you have them.
Fantastic, Joe. Hopefully you can hear me okay.
Yes.
I just wanted to say two things. So one is thank you for the great presentation and the fact that we have the Mayor's Challenge going out there. I'd love to see Cottage Grove citizens come together to win that event. And I can assure you, for those that have used or are considering the sprinkling system,
Smart irrigation.
Thank you, smart irrigation. I got mine a couple years ago, and I have to tell you, it makes a huge difference. And it's a huge difference from one on saving water, but I'll be honest with you, it also saves money on your water bill. So I've seen a definite difference in it. And unfortunately, I'll say this, it also tells you when it's too cold to actually water, because I did actually hook my sprinkler system up a couple weeks back, and these last week or so, it keeps telling me frost warnings. So it is that smart to know when not to put water on the ground. So pretty amazing. Any other council members have any comments or?
Yes, Mayor.
Go ahead, Councilmember Mills.
Just real quick, if residents wanted to learn more about those programs or how to get the rebates, where's the best place for them to go?
Councilmember Mills, they can go to our website for the smart irrigation controllers. There's an application on there to sign up and receive one of those. Otherwise, they can always contact me. Just at the city, Joe Fox at cottagegrovemn.gov.
Great, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Councilmember. Any other questions? All right, thank you, Joe, for presenting this evening.
Thanks.
All right, next on our presentations is C, which is the Arbor Day Proclamation. And I did ask Councilmember Lorraine Mills to please present and read the proclamation for Arbor Day.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. Real quickly, I'm going to talk about our few programs that we have going on this year, and then I'll turn it over to Councilmember Mills to read the proclamation. So just go through a few slides here quickly. Arbor Day is internationally recognized for the planting of trees, and really those goals are conservation and forestation. It's a chance to protect the trees that we have and to bring more trees into the environment as well. The first thing that we have going on is the Parks Department will be hosting the 2021 Arbor Day ceremonial tree planting. This is going to be at Hemingway Park on next Wednesday, April 28th at 9:30 a.m. I know the Parks Department's been working with that local neighborhood to also attend that event where they'll be planting trees in the park. So that'll be an exciting event. We'll hope we have good weather for that. Another thing we have going on, not necessarily related to trees, but just kind of the health of a forest. In particular is our buckthorn pickup that we do each year. Once again, we'll be working with residents to get rid of invasive buckthorn. If they want to call Public Works before April 23rd, they can be added to a schedule where next week on April 28th or 29th, weather permitting, depending on which day, we will pick up that buckthorn and take care of it. So you just need to call Public Works, get your name on the list, and then put it out on the, just behind the curb, kind of in the boulevard area. And our Public Works crews will pick it up on one of those 2 days. Finally, we have our Arbor Day tree giveaway. This is something we started last year with COVID, and it was very popular, where residents can go online to the city website and register to be entered into a drawing to rent a free bare root tree. We have about 140 trees that we're going to give away this year, and we're going to post that to the website between Friday, April 23rd and Saturday, April 24th. We'll leave it open for that entire time and let folks sign up. There's 1 entry per address, and then names will be drawn randomly. Last year, we just opened it one morning, and it filled up within about an hour, so a lot of folks didn't get a chance to even try and participate, so that's why we'll leave it open longer this year and then have a drawing. And winners will have their trees delivered to their home on April 30th, 2021 between 7 a.m. and noon. That'll be next Friday on actual Arbor Day. And here's the 3 varieties of trees. We got a mountain ash, Japanese tree lilac, and prairie fire crab. So some nice trees that folks can get. Like I said, it's a bare root tree. It's a pretty good sized tree that we'll deliver. And with that, I'll turn over to Councilmember Mills.
Thank you, Ryan. So here is the Arbor Day Proclamation. Whereas climate change is a complex problem that impacts all Minnesotans and our ability to thrive, and whereas the health and longevity of Minnesota's trees are being affected by changing temperatures and precipitation, more extreme weather events, and increasing pressure from pests, diseases, and invasive species. And whereas Minnesota is at risk to lose over 1 billion ash trees due to emerald ash borer, which would impact carbon storage, habitat, water movement, and water quality. And whereas trees capture carbon from the atmosphere and store it in their trunks, roots, and the surrounding soil, thereby offsetting greenhouse gas emissions. And whereas a healthy tree canopy decreases temperatures along streets, providing cooler spaces in the summertime. And whereas trees reduce stormwater runoff and act as a filter, preventing sediments and pollutants from washing into waterways. Whereas Minnesotans can help build resilient communities and reduce the negative impacts of climate change by planting and caring for trees 1 tree at a time. And whereas the City of Cottage Grove will host a ceremonial tree planting and volunteer planting event at Hemingway Park on Wednesday, April 28th, 2021, and tree giveaway to residents on Friday, April 30th, 2021. Now therefore, the mayor and the city council of the City of Cottage Grove, County of Washington, State of Minnesota, hereby proclaim April 30th, 2021 as Arbor Day in the City of Cottage Grove. Passed this Wednesday, the 21st day of April, 2021. Myron Bailey, Mayor.
Fantastic. Thank you, Councilmember Mills, for doing that. And then just before we go to our final presentation to make this all official, we do need a motion to approve both the proclamation for autism awareness and then also the Arbor Day proclamation, just to make it official. So would a council member like to make a motion on both?
Mayor, I'll make that motion for both the autism awareness and also the Arbor Day proclamation.
Fantastic.
Second.
Thank you, Councilmember Mills. Seconded by Councilmember Olson, did I hear?
Correct.
All right. Sounds great. Seeing no other discussion, Joe, you officially do the roll?
Councilmember Mills,
Aye.
Councilmember Dennis,
Aye.
Councilmember Thiede,
Aye.
Councilmember Olson,
Aye.
Mayor Bailey.
Aye, thank you. Thank you. All right, so our last presentation this evening is one that weren't able to do last year, and very happy that we're actually back into doing it this year, I believe. And that is the 2021 Public Works Spring Cleanup Event. And we're having a presentation to share with the public by our Public Works Director, Ryan Burfine. So Ryan, welcome back to the podium.
Thank you again, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. Yep, so we do have our spring cleanup event this year. We're definitely excited that we can bring it back after COVID. We weren't able to do that last year. It's going to be Saturday, May 1st. It'll be 7 a.m. to 3 p.m., same time that we have each year. It'll be at the Cottage Grove Public Works Department, which is down on West Point Douglas Road, kind of across Highway 61 from Target. And our accepted items this year, you can see on the left is kind of our list that we have in the cost to bring these items. We'll be taking household goods, tires and batteries, miscellaneous materials by the load, treated and untreated lumber, electronics, and shredding. And it'll be set up pretty similar this year where folks come down West Point Douglas Road and wrap around 96th Street. We'll have some CSOs out there helping with traffic. It's generally pretty busy, pretty well attended, so we'll have those folks helping as well. And when you do get up there, it's cash or check only. And for COVID-19, we are asking folks to wear face coverings when you're working with our staff to pay, and then also please stay in your vehicle. One new thing change, this was actually this was worked out actually last year. We weren't able to make the change over due to COVID. Washington County is no longer accepting the household hazardous materials at our specific spring cleanup day. They're really trying to encourage residents to use their environmental center, which is open year round. It's just up in Woodbury on Cottage Grove Drive, just south of Bailey Road. It's, like I said, it's open year round. They can take all that material at any time throughout the year. We've done a lot of, I'd say, notice on this. We had our flyer in the newsletter where we had information on the spring cleanup and letting folks know. Also, we're going to have our typical notice kind of down by the roundabout next week, and we'll talk about this as well. You know, hoping to catch folks. I know they are used to that being there, but like I said, this was actually coordinated a little while back with Washington County, and as they try to continue to use that environmental center. We are going to have a few extra stations this year, so hopefully we can keep things flowing a little bit faster. That is our goal, so we're hoping for good weather and a really good turnout this year. And with that, I guess I'll stand for any questions, but if folks in the public have questions as well, they can reach out to Public Works, and the phone number is on the screen.
Fantastic. Thank you, Ryan, and thank you and the team down there for doing such a great job with this program. So, Council, any questions for Mr. Burfine?
Don't believe so.
All right. Thank you, Ryan. All right. Next on our agenda this evening is consent calendar. Is there anything council would like to pull on consent?
I'd like to pull L.
That's Councilmember Thiede, L.
Yep.
Okay. Any other council member? All right. Seeing none at this point, we'll move to L, which is Glacial Valley Estates First Edition. Councilmember Thiede.
And I don't know, Jennifer, if you want to be able to get up, or Ben, answer a couple questions for me. So we had a presentation from the Cedarhurst folks, and I know that Washington County, there's different ideas they had and things like that, and possibly putting some other townhomes, things like that on that property, and I'm, probably maintain the 70th Street entrance to the behind the Cedarhurst that comes straight across from Almar Village entrance. But I imagine the county would love to take and get the driveway off of Keats Avenue, and so as I was looking at that, and then the final plat actually for Glacial Valley Estates popped up on Friday, and I did send a note in, but then I forgot to follow up on a note. But there, I guess I saw an opportunity there that by moving a couple of their quad homes in their first edition there, that and possibly share the border there a little bit with the Cedarhurst deal, that might be able to eliminate the drive off of Keats and actually connect a drive where they might have townhomes and that would come across from 70th to actually the entrance off of Keats for Glacial Valley Estates. And I, again, it's kind of last hour here, but I firmly got it in my mind in terms of how that would work, and it seems fairly straightforward. It seems like, the trail may shift just a little bit. It might have a little wiggle in it or something like that. But I'm wondering, and it would definitely better utilize the land in that spot. So I'm just curious, what would be the implications if we could take another quick look at that? And see if there's any, real validity in being, doing that, and how much benefit it would create, and I guess how much pain if we try to do that would be created. But
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, Councilmember Thede, I think in theory, it's a very good, valid point. Obviously, you want to provide as much connection as possible, but I think, with Cedarhurst, we're kind of behind the 8 ball a little bit compared to Glacial Valley, in that we don't have a site plan yet or a concept plan for Cedarhurst. We don't know how they're planning to utilize that lot, or even if it would open the door for a connection to the north. Couple other considerations with that would be obviously the trail corridor, which is already in there in military, and impacts to that and crossing that trail. Also impacts to, I think it's East Ridge Woods, the D.R. Horton development there, and bringing a drive kind of behind those homes on the cul-de-sac. Might be something too that, could be an issue with bringing another drive through there. And then, just looking at the comp plan, kind of not really looking at that connection. So I think there's multiple factors, and probably the primary one being Glacial Valley is ready to roll with this development. They're in the ground already, moving dirt. So I think it would complicate things in terms of redesign at this stage of the game. But I think it's a valid point, but I think we can accommodate access to Cedarhurst through other means. And certainly, Ryan, I don't know if you have any other thoughts. Keats might be a challenge in terms of maintaining that access, but certainly from the south.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. I guess thinking in terms of access, actually that Keats connection that exists today, that's a right-in, right-out due to the median. Right now, folks have to do a U-turn on the north end of the median is how that works. And we've had discussions with the county previously, just knowing Cedarhurst was, for sale and could be some changes. And that right-in, right-out is actually less of an issue because it's restricted today. Even as that road expands, they don't have as much of a concern with the Keats connection as it sits today, just because when you have a right in, right out, it's fairly safe and you don't have those left turns. So, so I think we can be, comfortable with that. It's certainly something we will address with the county as we get more information on the Cedarhurst project, but just a little more information on the Keats connection.
yeah, because I'd imagine too then that if Cedarhurst, if those guys were looking for entry exit to that, and they wanted to do a little bit more with a square, and they wanted to take that driveway where it currently is out, there really probably isn't any place that they would get allowed to move it between where it exists now and to where Glacial Estates is going to come out to the north, I would imagine.
Councilmember Thede, Mr. Mayor, one thing I know the county, they've kind of brainstormed because they know they need to provide access, and we've talked about how now with the different kind of uses going through East Ridge Woods is not a great option. So it's certainly something we could look at as long as you can maintain that somewhat of a restricted access. There could be some flexibility there we can work on. The other thing with the roundabout there and knowing how this corner can work and what they'd kind of build into and people would understand going into it is probably utilizing that roundabout to some way as well. But it's something we could work on with the county to see if there's other options as we get a site plan.
Yeah, because we also then see future potentially retail and so forth across Keats from where Cedarhurst is. At least that's what we have planned for, right?
Correct.
Yep, that is correct, Councilmember Thiede. And for that development, you'd see actually them using where Glacial Valley Estates, they'll be putting in turn lanes. They would utilize those. But in our access management plan, we have that caveat we put in there. The city requested that we can always add more partial access points. So even though you've got these full access points every quarter mile, you could have more of these right-in, right-outs in the future as well.
But that, in terms of using the Glacial Valley, that was the other beneficial thing I saw possibly with other access to Cedarhurst. Okay. All right, well, I guess it may be too late.
All right. Sounds good. Seeing that there was no other comments or things pulled from consent at this point, I will look for a council member to
Move consent. Oh.
all right, I think I heard
Whichever.
Councilmember Thiede, and who was seconded? I'm sorry?
I'll second.
Second, Councilmember Olson. Any further discussions? Hearing none, Joe, do you want to do the roll?
Councilmember Mills,
Aye.
Councilmember Dennis,
Aye.
Councilmember Thiede,
Aye.
Councilmember Olson,
Aye.
Mayor Bailey.
Aye. So if you're here for anything, whether it's in the council chambers or online, for anything that was on tonight's consent calendar, all of those items have been approved. Number 8 is approved disbursement. 8A is to pay the bills.
Motion to approve the bills.
We have a motion by Councilmember Dennis,
Second.
second by Councilmember Mills. All right, Joe, you want to do the roll?
Councilmember Mills,
Aye.
Councilmember Dennis,
Aye.
Councilmember Thiede,
Aye.
Councilmember Olson,
Aye.
Mayor Bailey.
Aye. Motion carries. Number 9 is public hearings. There are none this evening. 10 is bid awards. We do have 2 bid awards to review and approve tonight. A is the 2021 Milland Overlay Project bid award. And our Public Works Director, Ryan Burfine, will be back up there. We're just going to put a seat up there for you, Ryan.
Sounds good. Good evening again, Mayor and Council. So the first project we're here to talk about tonight is the 2021 Milland Overlay Project. The city took bids on this project last Thursday. There were 7 bids received. We did get very favorable bidding. This project is pretty much all bituminous work. And the way the city estimates this work is we spent a lot of time talking to folks in the industry, a couple months prior, and there was a lot of concern with things going on in the economy and the world right now that bituminous pricing would be going up quite a bit, and we just haven't seen it, which is really great to see. So you can see our low base bid is a little over $100,000. Underneath our engineer's estimate of $710,000. And this project is doing that about 2.5 miles of Milland overlay up in the Timber Ridge neighborhood, south of 70th and west of Meadowgrass, or Hardwood Avenue. And then per federal rules, we'll also be doing redoing the pedestrian curb ramps throughout that neighborhood. When you do maintenance on the road, you need to make the pedestrian curb ramps ADA compliant. So that is in this project as well. And the recommendation tonight is to award this project to OMG Midwest, DBA Minnesota Paving and Materials for that total base bid. Recommendations on the screen, and I'll answer any questions.
All right, Council, is there any questions for Ryan on this particular project?
Yeah.
All right, hearing none. Council, I'll look for somebody to make the motion as it's presented.
Move to approve.
Second.
All right, I'm sorry, I didn't catch who did the first approval.
Olson.
Councilmember Olson, thank you. And second, was that Councilmember Thiede?
Yes, it was.
Thank you. All right, any further discussion? All right, hearing none. Joe, do you want to do a roll?
Councilmember Mills,
Aye.
Councilmember Dennis,
Aye.
Councilmember Thiede,
Aye.
Councilmember Olson,
Aye.
Mayor Bailey.
Aye. Motion carries. Our next item is B, which is the Hamlet Park Improvement Project Phase 3 bid awards. And again, Ryan Burfine will walk us through this one.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, for Hamlet Park Phase 3, this was also bid last Thursday. We received 10 bids on this project, so a lot of interest. And this is that third and final phase of Hamlet Park, where we're going to be doing the parking lots, finish up the utilities, do the entrance off of 91st Street, and the final parts of the trail. And as part of that as well, we have the 2 shelters that'll be built with the project. And that is what the alternate was. Just seeing the pricing we got for the shelter with pavement management, we did have this one separate as well. And looking at these bids, you can see the base bids were pretty favorable. Miller Excavating is about $100,000 under that base bid amount. The alternate is a little bit over our estimated amount, but not quite to the same level of that. What we saw with the pavement management project that I was talking about to the council 2 weeks ago. We took a look at this number we got with the alternate. These are bigger shelters, they're different. And we are recommending to award that alternate tonight through the project. This is a pretty, I think, complex, bigger project in the park. We really want to keep it on schedule and not get in this contractor's way. So we considered kind of the staff time and what the cost would be with this type of savings, and we really think it's a better process just to have the contractor do that work. So the recommendation tonight is to award the base bid and alternate one to Miller Excavation. So the recommendation's on the screen, and I'll answer any questions.
Fantastic. Thank you, Ryan. Council, any questions on this particular one?
Yeah, this is Thiede. I got a question.
Councilmember Thiede?
So, refresh my memory now. The which one was it was right in the middle of Ball Diamonds is the one where we're going to build it, and these pavilions were elsewhere, or tell me that again.
That's correct, Councilmember Thiede. There is a separate work through more of an architectural contract that Zach Doctor is working on for that in the middle of the Ball Diamonds, a concession stand. These are just kind of your typical, a little bit larger, but shelters that are out around the parking lot that are included in this project. So these are kind of a pre-made kit, if you will, not requiring that architectural design and work that the other contract requires.
And so these have sides and everything. They're all enclosed, or are they just open pavilion?
These are open pavilions. Yep, these are open pavilions. A little bit larger ones. I believe they're 20 by 30 off the top of my head, but yeah, they're two larger pavilions that folks can use. The concession stand, that's not for anyone's actual use. That's just the building to house the concessions area. This is where we'd have the picnic tables where folks can go in there and, whatever they want to do, eat their lunch and whatnot.
And they were that much, huh? Just for 4 posts and a roof.
Yep, Councilmember Thiede, I know it is surprising. When you look at kind of the commercial standards, a lot of concrete and steel, unfortunately, has gone up quite significantly in the past year. So we did try to take that into account with this estimate, but that's a big factor in it as well.
All right, thank you.
Thanks.
Any other questions for Ryan on this one?
I do, Mayor.
Yes, Councilmember Olson.
Thank goodness we're not building it out of plywood, because plywood
That's true.
prices are ridiculous right
That's
now.
true.
Telling you what, we wouldn't be able to afford it. This is phase 3. So can you recall, all in phase 1, phase 2, and now phase 3, or maybe Zach can recall, what has our total investment been in this park relative to these improvements?
Yep, Councilmember Olson, Mr. Mayor. I do know the construction costs, roughly off the top of my head. The first phase, that was the grading and some initial utility work. That was around $300,000. And last year was all the ball field construction and everything that entails. That was right around $1 million. So with this, we're right about $2 million. And then with the work that Zach Doctor, our Parks and Rec Director, is doing, I believe that building is somewhere on the order of $400,000 or $500,000 roughly. So about $2.5 million in construction costs specifically for this park.
Okay. The reason I asked is, there's sometimes this competition between sides of the highway, so to speak. Not that we engage in that competition, but there are residents who feel as though certain areas of the city perhaps get more attention versus less attention. $2.5 million investment is pretty significant, and I know that park gets a tremendous amount of use. When you look at our park system as a whole, Hamlet is either number 1 or number 2 in terms of overall usage every year, and it's been that way for as long as I can remember, and I grew up right down the street from there. So I'm really impressed with the fact that we've taken the steps that we have to invest in that park, make sure that it's viable for all sorts of different uses, et cetera. And I want to thank you guys for all the hard work and effort that you've put in, because it's taken a great deal of planning to take what it was and turn it into what it's going to become, which is pretty awesome. I mean, it's a far cry from what Hamlet Park was when I was growing up and swinging on the monkey bars. So thank you for that information. $2.5 million investments, incredible. Appreciate it.
Fantastic. Any other council comments? I did have one, it's kind of a piggybacking a little bit on what Councilmember Olson said. And I know Ryan was probably looking at Zach getting some of the numbers, but it's actually higher than that because I do know we did some renovations on the building down there. We upgraded the skate park, we redid the trails, and I know we put in new equipment down there too, for play equipment too. And I think we even upgraded some of the tennis courts to basketball, if I recall, or pickleball. So I'm excited that we're finally, and I think Councilmember Olson stated it correctly, very excited that we're finally at the point where this park is getting finished, as we've been working on it slowly, so to speak, trying to conserve money and be safe, with the taxpayer dollars, and we're finally getting there. So thank you, staff, for hanging in there with the council and myself to get this project done. All right, so with that, council, I'm looking for a motion on this item.
Mayor, Councilmember Dennis here, I'll make motion that we adopt Resolution 2021-055, awarding the bid for the Hamlet Park Improvements Project Phase 3 to Miller Excavating in the total amount of $710,464.80, which includes the base bid plus alternate number 1.
Second.
Fantastic. Thank you, Councilmember Dennis. Second by Councilmember Thiede. Is that what
Yep.
Okay. All right. Any other discussion? All right, Joe, do you want to do the roll, please?
Councilmember Mills,
Aye.
Councilmember Dennis,
Aye.
Councilmember Thiede,
Aye.
Councilmember Olson,
Aye.
Mayor Bailey.
Aye. Motion carries. All right, moving along. Next on our agenda is 11, which is the regular agenda. We do have one item this evening. The item is 10870 Ideal Avenue, CUP, to allow expansion of a non-conforming use. And our Community Development Director, Ben Boyk, is going to walk us through this one. Welcome, Ben.
All right, thank you. Mayor, council members, tonight we have a request to review a conditional use permit for the expansion of a legal non-conforming use at 10870 Ideal Avenue South, and that is to allow for the exterior storage, delivery, return, and service of semi-trailers, and ground level office and storage containers. So in terms of location, this property is located on the west side of Ideal Avenue South, just north of 110th Street, as outlined in the depiction here. In terms of background, the property is currently occupied by Acton Mobile. And that operation, current use of the property is operating under an ICUP that was approved by the city in 2015. That allows for a similar use as listed. However, the interim conditional use permit expires as of August 31st, 2025. City Cargo and Storage Company does have a purchase agreement with the applicant to purchase the property, and the application is to expand the legal nonconforming use to also allow service of semi-trails and ground level office and storage containers. So in terms of proposed use, CCNS is proposing to utilize the property as an overflow lot. They would store up to 150 units on site during the peak season, which is roughly the holidays through the start of construction season. The other times of the year would be roughly a third of that. When the initial request came in, staff said that this use is very similar to that of the ICUP, and therefore the proposed use could come in under that ICUP and operate under that ICUP. However, the applicant opted to proceed with the conditional use permit application to again expand the legal nonconforming use and would not expire per the conditional ICUP. So a very important part of this application is the current land use and the zoning for the subject property. On the top, you can see the land use map, which designates the property for single family, or excuse me, low density residential in the comp plan. And then on the bottom picture is the current zoning of the property, which is R3 single-family residential. So the current zoning isn't in line with that guided land use of low-density residential. So when reviewing applications specifically for expansion of non-conforming uses, the important key word in this language is the city may allow for that expansion of the legal nonconformity. So the applicant is not entitled to expand that legal nonconforming use through a CUP, and the city has discretion based on that word may in the ordinance. Also, when looking at conditional use permits, we have a set of guidelines, the 10 listed here. The 3 that we feel that this request is not satisfying are the underlying ones, that being 1, 2, and 10, which the first one being that the proposed use is consistent with the 2040 comp plan. Well, as previously mentioned on the slide, the property is guided for low-density residential, and this use does not fit that. And the second one being that it's consistent with the zoning ordinance, and again, the property is zoned R3 single-family, which the proposed use is not in compliance with. Also, a permanent CUP allowing the non-conforming use will impede orderly development in the area. City water was previously extended just outside this property and an adjacent area of this property, and city sewer is being extended close by this year. And adjacent land legal non-conforming uses are not protected by conditional use permits currently. Oops. The Planning Commission held a public hearing on March 22nd. The applicant's legal counsel raised several questions in favor of the CUP, which are referenced in the staff memo. The Planning Commission had a lengthy discussion regarding the application. They mentioned environmental concerns, potential for future extensions to the existing ICUP, the permanent nature of conditional use permits. They asked about the reasoning for the termination deadline on the existing ICUP, whether or not the current owner was aware of that ICUP upon purchase in 2018, and then future use of the property beyond 2025. So after thoughtful discussion, the Planning Commission ended up voting 6-0 to recommend denial of the conditional use permit according to the findings of fact as presented by staff, which is listed here on the recommendation. Staff is recommending the council deny the conditional use permit based on the 3 original conditions that you see here. And then under advisement of the city attorney, we've actually added a 4th findings of fact, which is listed here, that the proposed use would be allowed under the existing ICUP. Therefore, there is value to the property and it can continue to exist with this type of industrial use through 2025. Thereafter, there will be value to the property as an R3 single-family residentially zoned property. So with that, I'm going to turn it to you, Mr. Mayor, for any questions.
Fantastic. Thank you. Thank you, Ben, for putting that up there. I guess what I'll first do is ask the council, do you have any particular questions for staff at this point?
No.
Okay, I'm not seeing council moving. I believe we do have 2 people on the call regarding this subject. I'm not sure which one I want to turn it over to. Mark, are you wanting to take this, or is Kyle?
I'm going to be taking it.
Okay, Mark, if you wanted to just share your name and address for the record, please, then you can start.
Very good. Thank you. Thanks very much. My name is Mark Theroff. My office address is 100 Washington Avenue South, Suite 1300 in Minneapolis, 55401. I am the attorney for the applicant. I very much appreciate the opportunity to speak with you briefly this evening. I want to start with just one thing that I want to make clear, just kind of frame my comments overall, and that is that my client is not interested in and really does not want to get in the way of or impede or interfere with the long-term plans that the city might have for this area. He just thinks that it's going to take longer than what might be suggested for that to happen, and feels that he should be able to put the property to productive economic use in the interim until such time that it might be ready for residential development. I've got a few responses to some of the things that you heard this evening. I'm just going to focus on 3 of them. One is this suggestion that the property is ripe for residential development. As you may know from the staff report, it has been zoned and guided for residential use since 1963. So we are pretty soon coming up on the 60th anniversary of this property being slated for residential development. It's also important to emphasize that it is effectively surrounded by existing long-term commercial uses. On the north and south sides, which are the two very long boundaries, because these are long, narrow properties, you have two industrial uses that have legal non-conforming use status. That means that they have the potential to continue operating forever, unless they were to voluntarily cease operations for a year or more, or there were a fire that destroyed over 50% of the business. There's nothing that would require those operations to ever cease. And as long as they operate, they sandwich us in. No one is ever going to want to try to develop our property for residential purposes as long as those two are operating the way they are. And then on our western boundary, we have a tree farm that's also an ongoing business operation that would get in the way of any kind of residential development in the area. To the south, that's the A&F Auto Parts Salvage Yard. It's been going since the 1950s. To the north, that's the Rumpke excavating site. There's a suggestion in the staff report that somehow non-conforming uses don't pose as much of a barrier to change in the future as CUPs. But they're much more similar, I think, than what is suggested. And as I said, they would require basically affirmative action by those existing property owners to voluntarily cease operating unless there's a fire. Otherwise, they could be there indefinitely. So against that backdrop, simply bringing water and sewer to this area, that might make residential development more feasible, but it's certainly not something that by itself makes residential development of our client's property any more imminent or likely even. I saw in the staff report, there's a sentence, I wasn't quite sure what it meant. It says, the city is currently in the implementation stage to see that residential development will occur in the near future. I don't fully understand what that means, but we talked with staff about what their expectations were for this area and were provided a concept plan that had been submitted by Lamar. This is, first of all, just a concept plan without any kind of timing tied to it. But significantly, it doesn't include my client's property. It doesn't include either the properties on either side of us. It doesn't even include the farm property to the north of Rumpke excavating. So what we've been told when we've asked specifically what staff's hanging its hat on and thinking that residential development is just around the corner here, we got a very uncertain concept plan that doesn't even come close to my client's property. The second issue I want to address is that granting a CUP would somehow lock up this property so that it couldn't be part of any future residential development. I think the main thing I want to say here is that as I said before, my client doesn't want to get in the way of anything that the city has planned. It's actually going to happen. And for this reason, we proposed that my client would grant the city an assignable option to purchase this property. And the way we envision that is that the agreement would say that for an agreed upon period of time, the operations could continue. And then at any point after that date, either the city or more likely any developer the city might want to assign its rights to could exercise the option and purchase that property for fair market value through a process that the parties would agree on the front end using appraisals or one of the other multiple ways we could do that. But that would allow my client to continue putting the property to productive use and would also mean that when that day comes, when in fact you've got a developer ready to develop that portion of the city would have the ability to step in and say, okay, we're going to assign this option to the developer. Developer's going to purchase the property. That terminates the CUP. And there's no downside at all to the city. And meanwhile, the property's been used for productive purposes, continuing to generate property taxes and so forth. So we also don't think that there is anything about the CUP as such that would interfere with the city's development plans. The last kind of category I want to address is the findings. Mr. Boyke explained to you, and it's in the staff report, that in order to approve our application, you'd have to make 10 specific findings. And staff report suggests that 3 of those findings can't be made. Those, if you're looking for them, they're on pages 4 and 5 of the staff report. I want to talk about the first 2, and that's compliance with the zoning ordinance and the guiding, the comprehensive plan. It's important to emphasize that a non-conforming use by its very nature does not comply with the zoning and guiding. So every single party that comes in and applies to you for a conditional use permit to expand a non-conforming use cannot satisfy those first 2 requirements. That's the very essence of a non-conforming use. I made this argument at the Planning Commission, and after that, staff have revised the report to address my argument. And the counter argument they give you is the example of a non-conforming structure. I think what they have is a house in the R3 that's too tall and wants to put an addition on the house. It's an interesting example, but it's completely inapplicable because it's talking about a non-conforming structure. You could have a non-conforming structure that has a conforming use. So it's very possible to have someone who's applying to expand a non-conforming structure who can also demonstrate compliance with the use provisions in the zoning ordinance and the comp guide plan. That's just not the case with a non-conforming use because by its nature, it's non-conforming. You're probably wondering how it could be that you've got criteria in your ordinance that could never be satisfied when that's the ordinance that has to be applied. And I would just say that the problem is using the vehicle of a conditional use permit to regulate expansions of a non-conforming use. That's fairly unique to your city, in my experience, and that might be what has created the sort of disconnect between the standards. The other criteria that staff suggested isn't satisfied here is number 10, which is the finding that the non-conforming use would not impede development. If you look at criteria 10 in your ordinance, it says would not impede development on adjacent vacant land. And there is no adjacent vacant land here. All the land on all sides of this property is already occupied and developed. So number 10 doesn't apply either. Last short, quick comment is we certainly recognize the city has discretion here. Mr. Boyke pointed out correctly that the ordinance says that you as the council may choose to grant this application and allow us to expand the non-conforming use. But just because the city has discretion doesn't mean that the decision doesn't have to be reasonable. And given what I've told you about how residential development does not appear imminent here, and more importantly, we could do this in a way that would make sure that the use doesn't impede residential development in the area. It seems reasonable to us to grant the application and allow us to proceed. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Mark, were you speaking on behalf of Kyle or Kyle Gabriel? Does you want to speak at all, or?
Kyle's my co-counsel.
Oh, he is your co-counsel. Okay. I just wanted to make sure. I wasn't sure if there was a necessity of either of you. Counsel, do you have any questions either for Mark or Ben or our attorney?
Mayor, I do.
Yes, Councilmember Dennis.
Thank you. So as council liaison to the Planning Commission, I was present at the meeting that we had here recently dealing with this, and there was a key point that was mentioned by one of the commission members, and that was that it had, and I'm going to butcher this because I don't have the exact quote in front of me. I did not know this gentleman was going to speak tonight, or I would have come in with the quote. But there were conditions placed upon the use of the property, and I believe what they were doing was trying to sell to a new owner, and they wanted to do some things. And so the point that was made by the commission member was that, you know, the parties should have known that there were conditions that were in place. And so that was that was a rather, poignant piece of this whole thing. relative to my observation. And what I would like to do, it's always wonderful to hear from other attorneys, and Mr. Thiroff is a very steadfast representative of his client. I would like to hear from our attorney, Corey Land, if she could weigh in and give us some thoughts and direction on this.
Corey?
Thank you, Your Honor. Hang on. Is it on?
There you go.
Yep.
I am not used to having to speak at council meetings lately, so thank you, Your Honor. My microphone doesn't even stand up. That's how rare I speak. This is the dilemma that cities face when they come to the point of, we have a policy, we have a guiding document, we have a plan for the development of our community, and we want it to develop in a certain way. And it creates sometimes legal nonconforming uses that at some point need to stop. And you have made that intentional decision in this area of your city. Prior council members have made that intentional decision. You have been very patient in waiting for development to occur here, but you have steadfastly stuck with the plan every single time you adopt a comp plan. You have not revisited this area to see if it needed to be re-guided, rezoned. You have intentionally made the decision that this is R3, single-family residential. So now we're coming to that point when one of the legal nonconforming uses is coming to an end. It's awkward, it's uncomfortable, they don't want it to happen. But this is kind of where you need to make that tough decision about, do we need to revisit? Or are we going to stick to our plan? And so you have no obligation to adopt or approve this conditional use permit application. As Community Development Director Boyk mentioned, this is an optional, this is it's permissive, it's not mandatory that you consider it. Now, the attorney does point out we have an awkward ordinance. That is true. But I got to tell you, the statute isn't that much more helpful either for legal nonconforming uses. It says that cities may choose to allow expansions of legal nonconformities. It doesn't say legal nonconforming uses. It says legal nonconformities, which is why in the memo points out legal nonconforming conditions, which then can comply with the comp plan, can comply with zoning, can meet all of the requirements of a conditional use permit, all of the criteria and the elements. But that use word, the legal nonconforming use, absolutely, I think by operation of what it is, it cannot comply with the first two. Therefore, you don't have to automatically approve it. It's awkward in our ordinance that we have words that say we're allowing a legal nonconforming use to expand when they're probably going to fail the first two criteria. But it could be a legal nonconforming condition that chooses to expand, and then they could meet that criteria. So it's something we're going to look at as we move forward with our zoning ordinance amendments, that maybe it's language we need to clean up, but it's language you have that you need to consider today. And so that's what's on the books. As far as it being surrounded by other legal nonconforming uses and conditional use permits are not the same. One of them does have a sunset. There are triggering events where you get to see them stop and you get to see your plan then come to fruition. Conditional use permits are permanent unless they voluntarily surrender it or they do something to mess it up and you revoke it. Those are the only ways you can get rid of a legal conditional use permit. So those are not the same. And the fact that this property happens to be surrounded by two properties that are legal nonconforming uses does not mean that you don't have to have the first domino fall in this area. This would be one of the first dominoes to fall. In 2025, when the ICUP expires, then it will have to be legal conforming. Any subsequent use will have to be legal conforming. And once that happens, then that's when other surrounding properties may get the idea that this is a good place to develop for single family. Bringing water to this area is
an enormous benefit to any developer. They don't want to have the expense and pay for that expense to have the city do it. It may not be in the city's plan to do it within their time frame, but it's going to be there now. And once it's there, that makes it much, much more attractive for developers. So you are preparing it, you are making it right. And just because the surrounding properties aren't quite there yet doesn't mean they won't get there faster because you have made it ready. So I strongly support the resolution for denial and all of the conditions that we have in it. And just to point out also that we didn't include specifically number 10, the criteria 10, because we recognize the surrounding properties are not vacant. That doesn't mean you can't consider the fact that you will impede orderly development. You will. By granting a permanent conditional use permit for this property, it will impede the development of the surrounding properties. I think that's a valid finding of fact.
All right, thank you, Corey. As always, appreciate your fantastic guidance. And, you know, I do want to mention on number 10, because there is one word in there which is substantial. And again, we talk about keywords. The word is potential. And potential means that the sky is a limit. And so if we don't follow with that, what ends up happening is we change that future, as you just pointed out, and that could have very adverse effects for the city. So I appreciate that very much. And Mayor, I'll stand down and return the microphone to you.
All right, thank you, Councilmember Dennis. Was there other questions at this point by the council?
Yeah, I just want to, this Councilmember
Councilmember
Thiede.
Thiede.
So let me make sure I understand. So they can do what they're doing right now for another 4 years per what's there, right? So, you know, and at that point in time, if for some reason we didn't foresee something happening residentially, they could come in and ask for an extension at that time, right?
Yes,
Is that true?
correct.
Yeah. So I guess I don't see any reason to necessarily grant it tonight. You know, maybe in 4 years, if we have better visibility on what's going to happen in you know, near term or whatever, then we can make the decision then. So, in my opinion. So, okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Thiede. Any other council members have any comments?
Mayor, I do.
Councilmember Olson.
Thank you. I appreciate all the guidance relative to the language in the packet here and some of the restrictions and the differences between a conditional use permit and an interim conditional use permit. The headline here is this property owner wants to sell their property. And in order to make the property more attractive to sell, they want a conditional use permit so that the prospective buyer can say that they have certainty of use of this property. Hence the reason we're even talking about this. The fact of the matter is, Dave hit the ball out of the park when he said they have an interim conditional use permit that will remain in effect to let them operate as is through 2025. And at that time, should they choose to apply for another interim conditional use permit, they have the ability to do that. Simple as that, folks. So unless anybody has anything else to add, I would move to approve the denial.
Okay, so I have a motion by Councilmember Olson to approve the denial. Do I have a second?
Second. Oh, go ahead, Ray.
Second.
Second by Councilmember Mills. Council, any further discussion? All right, seeing none. Joe, will you please do the roll?
Councilmember Mills,
Aye.
Councilmember Dennis,
Aye.
Councilmember Thiede,
Aye.
Councilmember Olson,
Aye.
Mayor Bailey.
Aye. The motion does carry. Thank you for presenting, Mr. Theroff. We'll talk to you soon. All right. The motion does carry, obviously. Next is 12, which is council comments or requests. Even though I'm not there, I'll start with Councilmember Mills.
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to say thank you to my colleague, Justin Olson for really bringing attention to the autism awareness, and how excited I was to see the book tonight, and be able to actually read it and get my hands on it. I had been meaning to go out and get one, so I'm very excited, and thanks Shaletta for being in our community and bringing a lot of joy to a lot of folks, and also a lot of awareness, and helping, in that whole realm of what's happening. So thank you for bringing that to our attention, so thanks so much. That's all I have tonight. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, Councilmember Mills. How about Councilmember Dennis?
Thank you, Mayor. I do have one item, and it's something that I'm very, very happy to share here with the entire community. As we know, we've gone through the last year and had tremendous hardship due to COVID, and we've had to, in essence, change the way of our life and walk away from doing a lot of things that we had done historically that were very meaningful to a lot of people. So this year, we are going to have the Memorial Day event right here at City Hall on May 31st at noon, which is a Monday. That is the holiday. I did confer with the Director of Public Safety, Pete Kerner, that we can appropriately socially distance and take care of all of the necessary requirements in order to have that. And I will be working hard. I serve on the Board of Directors for Beyond the Yellow Ribbon, and my colleague, Councilmember Olson, is council liaison to that group as well. And so we will work together to put a great program on here that will be very meaningful, and will do justice and pride to those who have served our country and who have paid the ultimate price. So just wanted to share that. We're looking forward, and we're hoping that we have a nice day of weather so that we can do this and do it right. So that's what I have. Thank you very much.
Fantastic. Thank you. Yeah, looking forward to that. It's always an amazing and honorable event. Councilmember Thiede.
Yeah, one thing I wanted to kind of mention is because I'm kind of a techie geek type of guy. You know, this out at River Oaks is this Top Tracer golf experience, and it's if any of you have seen like the big Top Golf deal that's up in Brooklyn Park right off of 694, and in that it's kind of similar to that, only a toned down version of it. And there's the only other place where this Top Tracer is in town is, I think it's Bremer over and that's in Edina, I believe, golf course. And so I'm really excited to see this golf experience, and because you can do different games. It integrates with your cell phone, and what doesn't these days, but it integrates with the cell phone, and it tracks how far your ball goes. You can track, I think accuracy and some different things in that. But gosh, you should look it up. It's Top Tracer, TOPTRACER golf experience. And if you're the least little bit technical, or you just love some of these golf games, you got to take a look at it and come out and check it out. So it's supposed to be running the first week in May. Right, Zach? Okay, so I'm excited about that, and I bet a lot of people will think that's really neat. So I think that's all I got.
Thank you, Councilmember Thiede. Councilmember Olson.
Nothing.
Nothing. Okay. All right. So I have two items real quick, and one is just obviously acknowledging that. We all just came through. I know Councilmember Dennis was commenting about COVID, and I'll put my little caveat on that in a minute, but and what we've been dealing with in the last, just over a year. The same thing with some of the racial unrest, and I would say it finally I'll call it a positive outcome that came out of the verdict yesterday that I think helps many of us breathe a sigh of relief. And when I say everyone, I'm also talking not just us as electeds or citizens out there, but also I think many of our public safety staff. I think there was a sense out there, and I do want to just thank the many people out in our community and out there that have voiced both their support for the importance of racial equality and racial justice, but also to our public safety department for the work that they do to make sure that our relationships that we have within our community, no matter who you are or where you live, is held to the highest standards with integrity and respect. So I just wanted to mention that, and hopefully, as we learn more of what we can do as a city and as an elected group to support racial equality and social justice as we continue to move forward, at the same time, we can hopefully begin, I'll call it the healing process. And the second thing, and some of you may be wondering why I am remote. I am remote because I unfortunately tested positive earlier this morning for COVID. And the only reason I'm bringing this up from the public's perspective is because I myself did get my first shot. I actually got my second shot, but in between the first and the second shot, I attended an event where I was wearing masks and so on, but there was some people at that event that ended up coming down with COVID. So I decided to just be safe and get tested. And unfortunately, even though I've had both shots and I practice social distancing, hand washing and mask, I still got it. And the reason I wanted to bring this up tonight to the public is just to remember that this is something that we're not out of the woods yet. I know we're looking at it. I'm really excited that, as Councilmember Dennis mentioned, that we're going to be able to do the memorial event at City Hall. I know that we're in the process right now of preparing and planning the 4th of July fireworks, but we're all still in this. And I still really do encourage everybody to please continue to practice social distancing, wearing masks, cleaning your hands, and when available to you and you have the ability and the opportunity to get vaccinated, I would do so, understanding that it's still out there and people are still getting sick. And unfortunately, some people are still dying. And so until we get more and more people vaccinated, the better off we'll be in the end. So I just wanted to make that comment for everybody tonight. No other council comments or requests. The next item on our agenda for this evening is the workshop, which is open to the public. Our workshop this evening is actually going to be discussing already, if you can believe this or not, the 2022 budget and giving our staff having some discussions and some guidance, which will be in the training room. And I'll be joining the rest of my council colleagues and staff virtually. And then after that, there is no workshop closed to the public, so we won't be adjourning in the room here. With my help from Councilmember Mayor Pro Tem Dennis, we will eventually do the adjournment after the training session is completed with the budget discussion. So everybody have a super evening, and council, I'll meet you in the training room shortly, virtually at least. Thank you.